Morning. Happy Wednesday. How's everyone doing today? I'm the boss today, which is good. Good morning. I'm a little bit late today, guys. It's been one of those mornings where there was just all this stuff that came up that I had to handle. I mean, I'm a mom, so sometimes you just got to get your stuff done at home. And the beauty of this morning was I had a few extra minutes just to sit on the patio with my kids and talk to them and find out how they're doing. I mean, they're going through a lot with all this going on today too, so it was nice to spend that time with them. So I did. I took an extra 10 minutes and it was at the expense of you guys. I'm so sorry, but I am here. I've got my coffee. I've got my topic for the day. This is one that was actually recommended yesterday. Little did this person know I already had it on the list. So it was already going to be discussed today. And I'm going to talk about probiotics today. Not only what do they benefit, but how do you pick one? Okay? So, do we have anyone out there on Facebook today? Hello. Okay, we had somebody. I see Instagram's checking in this morning quite a bit. So nice to see all of you guys out there. Once again, sorry I'm late, but hey, let's have some fun. So I want to dive in and I want to talk about probiotics. I think one of the number one questions I get is how do you pick one? Right? How do we know what to pick? We go to the store, we don't know, there's a ton of them, we see ads for them, we don't even really know how many we should take. And honestly, a lot of this is stuff you should discuss with your doctor. So I will say before I get started that these are all individualized, okay? Everybody's different. We all may be human and have similar biochemistry, but how our body uses that biochemistry is different depending on environmental factors, genetics, and all sorts of other things. I will be talking about that coming up as well in another live about biochemical individuality and how we, treat everyone a little bit different. But these are just some general overview on what do probiotics do, why do we care, what types of things should we be paying attention to when we're looking at a probiotic so that you can verify that you get something that at least has decent quality. Probiotics can get expensive, and if you're not getting the benefit from it, why should we do it, right? We'll also talk about probiotic type foods. Do those have as much benefit or not? And talk a little bit about differences in flora. So I'm excited for today. It's a great topic. And it looks like many of you have checked in, so that's good. So this morning, I'm Dr. Tricia Pingel, and this is my morning checkup. And our topic today is probiotics. So it is reported that approximately 40 million people in the US take probiotics. I have found from my experience that people don't always know exactly what to take. They hear that they're good, but maybe not know exactly why. So, and there are so many out there. Even from my selection of probiotics to pick from, I get nutraceutical grade, highly tested probiotics into my practice, multiple companies. I mean, pretty much every supplement company makes a probiotic in some respect, some way better than others. I mean, it just has a lot to do with the way that they're manufactured, the quality of them, how long they last, and their labeling. To be honest, labeling is something that is very, very, very important. So we're gonna talk about how to read a probiotic label today. I see people switching from Instagram to Facebook. Hey, it's the same lecture in either place, but it's all good. I shouldn't say lecture, this is fun, right guys? It's fun. It's fun to learn about this kind of thing. So what the heck are probiotics? What are we talking about here? Probiotics, I think of them kind of like tenants in our body. They live in our body and we have a symbiotic relationship with them. Okay, meaning that we rely on them and they rely on us. Okay, so they help us keep our immune systems, our hormones, our bodies healthy, and we feed them. Okay, so it's similar. There's other symbiosis in nature. Trying to think of an example, maybe ladybugs, how ladybugs kill off pests on crops. help us and feeds them, right? There's also a lot of fish that will eat parasites off other fish or whales and things like that. So there's a lot of symbiosis in our nature anyway. Things help other things. It's part of the cycle of life. Bacteria help us. So many times we think about bacteria being a bad thing, especially in times like this. Obviously, we're dealing with more a virus than a bacteria, but it's a bug at any rate, right? So we're cleaning everything. We want to avoid it at all costs. Some bacteria are good, okay? And they help us. They help us fight those viruses. There are a ton of books, research, articles on the microbiome and how it's connected between your brain and your gut. In fact, I started writing a book on this and I hope to have it out at some point. So in the meantime, I'm just going to talk to you about it one-on-one. But there are actual communication pathways between your head and your gut. And this is why gut health is so important, okay? Also, stress impacts your gut. I bet we're going to talk about that too, because that's what I talk about, is how stress is going to impact things. So all of this has to do with your flora, and flora we need, okay? We want these bugs in our body and we want them in balance. So there's a ton of different strains of healthy bacteria, okay? Maybe you've heard of some lactobacillus, bifidobacterium. I mean, there's a ton of them. And of those strains, there's multiple strains. So when someone says, oh, well, take lactobacillus, or they tell me I take lactobacillus, the first thing I say is, well, which strain do you take? And everyone looks at me and says, what? What do you mean? Right? There's a ton of different strains of probiotics. You've got, and they all have numbers, so they're usually numbered in some way. LA14, LPC37, something to that effect. They all have different numbers, they have different benefits. And what's interesting, what's so cool, is depending on your body makeup, you have different levels of those. So there's a lot of research on plant-based diets growing certain types of bacteria, meat-based diets growing certain types of bacteria, and a lot of this is leading to a ton of obesity research, dietary research, things that are going on with how you can change disease processes by feeding the bacteria something different, right? So I feed my dogs different foods because Hank and Piggy get rashes when they eat one type of food, so they have a specialty food. My other dog does just fine. She can eat anything, right? But they have different diets to feed different things based on their own health. They're all dogs, it's all dog food, but all dog food isn't created equal. Neither are probiotics, okay? So the balance of them is very important. That's where working with somebody who's educated in probiotics, if you have a lot of medical concerns, is important, because we can help you decide how much balance do you need of each one. Now for today, I'm just gonna talk in general about this, general recommendations. If you guys have a lot of gut issues and a lot of health conditions, you definitely should try to get more in depth in this with your doctor and see if you can even tweak it even more to make this even more beneficial, okay? So bacteria need to be in balance. If they're not in balance, you're gonna have a symptom. And the symptom is not always gut related. Because of the connection, it could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be rashes, it could be heart problems, it could be diabetes, it could be obesity, it could be almost anything if gut flora is out of balance. It's not always digestive. Often it is, not always, okay guys? So, all right. So one of the symbiotic relationships that we have from these bacteria is that they synthesize vitamin K in our body. So if we don't have enough of these bacteria, we don't get enough vitamin K. And vitamin K is critical in blood clotting. It's very critical in bone health. So a lot of our regular maintenance every day involves a vitamin that is synthesized by these bacteria. So if you're someone, for example, who has taken a ton of antibiotics, that threatens your production of vitamin K, that threatens your blood clotting, that threatens your bone health, right? So these are things to pay attention to. I had someone ask how I'm feeling. I'm feeling great. Yeah, I'm good. Hopefully I don't look like I'm not. Yeah, no, I feel great. It's a good day. It's just a busy day. But thank you for asking. I hope you're feeling well as well. This is why all of these things I'm talking about is why I recommend that people take probiotics in general, and is probably why so many people in the US are taking probiotics on a daily basis, because they've read about all of these amazing benefits, okay? So I do recommend it. I think that fermented foods are also a fantastic thing. We're gonna talk about that. But I do recommend taking probiotics on a daily basis and definitely taking them in higher dose when you're feeling ill. Why? Number one, I always want to try to avoid antibiotics unless it's absolutely necessary. Now, I'm not going to let someone ruin their health by not prescribing one, but I'm going to try to go as long as I can before I have to, simply because I don't want to kill off that natural immunity that these bacteria help with, okay? So if you already have a good baseline of bacteria and then you start to get sick and you take higher amounts, you actually will have a better immune response to that bacteria. Now, if it ends up getting worse, obviously you may have to consider an antibiotic. If you do, then you need to replenish all those bacteria, bugs, stuff that you took away by the antibiotic. So you want to get your immune system back up to par. I don't know if many of you have noticed, I've seen this in kids a lot, that they have reoccurrent like ear infections or reoccurrent sinus infections, and they're on antibiotics a lot, and you'll find that they'll start catching more and more and more mild illnesses. A lot of that has to do with gut flora. There's some amazing research on that in regards to allergies and allergy development. There were some studies, and I don't have them in front of me because it's been one of those mornings where I didn't pull them all up, but from memory, I have someone asking about psoriasis. Give me 1 second, I'm almost there. Yeah. But anyway, these with mothers while they're pregnant, taking probiotics during pregnancy is actually reducing the number of allergies that the babies are born with. So they've done a lot of research on farms, where kids are automatically exposed to animals versus non-animals, and looked at gut flora of kids that grow up on farms versus ones that don't. And they've done all these comparisons, and they've looked at the differences in flora between different environments. And by looking at that, they would see how many people would have allergies versus wouldn't, and then they would do these studies with certain strains of probiotics in mothers to see if that reduced allergies. And these were in mothers that had allergies, had this atopic presentation where everyone in the family was allergic to cats, for example, and the child wasn't after taking probiotics. Really cool stuff out there. There's a ton of research on that. I fully believe in it because these bugs help develop our immune system. And if they're developing our immune system and we're passing that to our babies, they're going to be a little bit stronger. So I'm coming back to that psoriasis question there, okay? So definitely probiotics are very helpful as preventative and during illness. You guys keeping up with me? Am I going too fast? Someone yesterday I talk too fast, and I do. I talk way fast. Sorry. I'll take a little sip of Boss here and let you catch up. All right. So live organisms, probiotics are live organisms, and you can find them in food. Now, there are some pros and cons to this, okay? So most people think of yogurt. Yogurt does typically have probiotics. However, how many of what strain is highly debated. Most people think it's around 1 billion of usually lactobacillus, sometimes bifido chains. 1 billion, okay? The stuff, let me just give you reference. When I give probiotics, it's usually never less than 10 billion. So that's 10 yogurts a day for general maintenance with no issues, with someone that has no issues at all. And if you have health issues, it's gonna be higher than that. So that's a lot of yogurt. That's also a lot of sugar, right? So if you're making your own yogurt and it's unsweetened, that's one thing, and maybe you can put higher amounts of bacteria in it. But if you're buying a commercial yogurt, it's usually not enough. It's a nice adjunct, but usually not enough. When I was in med school, I worked with some pediatricians. I did an internship in pediatrics, and one of the recommendations that they were making at the time when a kid came in and was put on antibiotics said, well, make sure you eat 1 yogurt a day. And, I'd question them and say, okay, well, 1 yogurt a day is 1 billion. You've got them on an antibiotic. So that seems a little low. That's not even like close to their normal flora, not to mention you're killing it all off. And it's funny because now over time, I've noticed that a lot of pediatricians are recommending higher dose probiotics, not just a yogurt every day. So times have evolved. But yogurt, pretty popular one, about 1 billion, I would say on average. Kimchi, have any of you heard of kimchi? Do any of you make your own kimchi? I haven't tried making it yet. Do I need a water? Okay, silly. Yeah, I'm fine. Anyway, kimchi is fermented cabbage. basically, and it has a bunch of other herbs in it. So it has other herbs that are very helpful to you. Cayenne, for example, can have a lot of health benefits. I just made some kimchi tacos the other night with a kind of like a teriyaki type tofu and kimchi cabbage on top. It was heavenly. That's a great way to incorporate fermented foods into your diet. Now, kimchi is a well-rounded probiotic, prebiotic. So in some people, I'm going to talk about prebiotics in a moment. In those people, sometimes it can cause stomach upset. Same with things like kombucha, sauerkraut. So if you get bloating when you eat fermented foods like that, usually it means your flora is off quite a bit and that you might be feeding the wrong ones. Okay. So, but kimchi is a great one. If you tolerate it, it's a great one. It's a great one to add into your diet. Sauerkraut is an acquired taste, and the sauerkraut is somewhere in the millions of CFUs, okay? Not billions, okay? So supplements in general will range anywhere from about 2 billion to 200 billion CFUs, okay? 2 to 200. I typically am telling people in general to be somewhere between 10 and 50 billion, okay, depending on their situation. I personally, this is just my own personal wellness, I take about 20 billion at minimum per day, minimum. And I'm going to talk about how you know that in a second as well. I have a lot of people commenting, and I promise after the live I will go through and answer. I'm trying to catch some of them, but when they move real fast, they move faster than my brain. So let's talk a little bit before I dive into the differences between pre and probiotics. I want to talk about some of the medical conditions that are impacted by flora and also how stress impacts this, because as you all know, stress is my specialty. And so I always want you to understand how high stress states will actually impact areas of your body that are part of your maintenance, okay, which bacteria flora are. So as I said earlier, the gut and the brain, they communicate. It's actually called the gut-brain axis. And if you went on to PubMed or you went on to other, peer-reviewed journals and typed in gut-brain axis, you would see a wealth of information, guys. There is so much information. There are tons of books written on the microbiome and the communication between the brain and the gut. It is so cool. It is so neat to see how we work with each other in our bodies and how amazing our bodies are. But because of this, we get a lot of symptoms if things aren't quite right. Basically, the bacteria communicate with the brain and they send signals. Okay, so for example, many of you may have heard that serotonin is made in the gut. A lot of serotonin is made in the gut. That's true. The bacteria do signal between the brain. Do we need serotonin? Do we not? Things like that. Norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, all of these neurotransmitters that help regulate our mood, that regulate depression, anxiety, a lot of times having to do with whether we want to eat or not, some eating disorders, all have to do with the gut-brain axis. Okay, many people who have gut disorders, like say celiac or IBS or reflux or anything that's affecting digestion, are going to also have an impact in their gut flora. Okay, what you eat also makes a difference in your flora. My flora is going to be very different from somebody who's a meat eater because I eat plants, right? Plants feed different bacteria. Okay. All right, so as far as other conditions that are related to poor gut health, they're also impacted by probiotics, and this comes to some of the questions that have been asked. Skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, acne, all of these conditions are usually related to gut health and very often linked to an imbalance of flora. Okay, so you definitely want to be taking probiotics or consuming probiotic foods, keeping an eye on your flora if you have any sort of skin condition. And autoimmunity in general, people go, well, psoriasis is autoimmune, so there's nothing I can do about it. Not true. Probiotics have a great impact on that. Probiotics have a great impact on general infection, recurrent ear infections, recurrent illnesses. Those types of things are all related, and they've all shown to have benefits from probiotics, and allergies included, as I talked about a little bit earlier. Depression and anxiety, tons of research on this. I tried to pull one up for you, but psychologists are using a lot of probiotics to help with depression for this exact same reason. right? Now, if you really get in depth with it and you see a doctor who's really involved with the microbiome, they can actually modify which bacteria go in to affect which neurotransmitter. Isn't that cool? That's so cool. That you can actually say, okay, I'm low in serotonin. What bug do I need to eat to encourage serotonin? That's pretty cool. Now, I don't know the answer to that. I don't spend that much time looking at each individual bug, but I'm telling you, it's out there. The research is out there. So think about how many antidepressants we might be able to avoid in the future if we really hone in on what bugs handle which parts of our body. Huge area of research. So cool. Same thing with anxiety, okay? I talked about yesterday the thyroid, and the thyroid conversion of T4 to T3 relies on flora as well. Flora are very important. So if your gut is off and stress has impacted your gut health, keep in mind, when you run from a bear, and you're always running from a bear, you're not going to stop and digest your food. You're not going to stop and do your everyday processes of maintaining neurotransmitters and communication. Your body's in a fight or flight state. So when you have stress impacting your gut health, and then gut health causes all these other conditions and other problems in the thyroid, neurotransmitters, skin, heart, that's obviously all going to be benefited by proper bacterial flora. This is why probiotics are so important and something to always consider in your general wellness, okay? We are highly dependent on each other. The gut, the brain, the endocrine system, which is your hormone system, and your immune system all rely on each other. So cool. That includes sex hormones as well. There's a lot of research also on estrogen dominance, gut flora, how to change hormone regulations with changing gut flora. So cool. I promise you, I'm working on learning more about each individual bug and how it works, and I will definitely share that as I learn it. It's just a lot. I mean, it's a lot of info, but so cool. It's all out there. Very neat. You need to make sure that you're balancing everything. There's also a difference between prebiotics and probiotics. Okay, prebiotics feed probiotics. So in many of the bottles that you'll see, you'll actually see prebiotics and probiotics in it. Now that can be beneficial if you have a fairly healthy gut flora. Now if you don't, you might feed the wrong ones. Okay, just like my dog example earlier, I can't give Emma's food to Pig. It doesn't work well. So sometimes prebiotics are too much, and I find a lot of gas and bloating. So if you're someone who does have medical conditions, usually for me, I usually start with something very simple and stick with a probiotic and stick with the prebiotics and foods. However, always discuss with your doctor, and if you tolerate them well, great. They can have great health benefits, the pre versus the pro, okay? But that's the difference. There are many foods that are considered prebiotics. And I'm not going to go into all those right now. I know asparagus is one, but definitely put prebiotics in your food at the moment. And then if your doctor feels that you could use that additional support, they can be very beneficial in many ways. Blood sugar regulation, I know they have a lot of research with. But along these same lines, there are also some potential side effects to taking probiotics. Most commonly, you hear gas and bloating, right? Once again, this comes to the host. If you have a really imbalanced flora, let's say you have way too much lactobacillus and you put in lactobacillus, that's going to cause more of an imbalance, can cause a lot of bloating. Now, if you went in and you put in bifidobacterium, it may actually take the bloating down. So knowing what you react to and what you're putting in, you have to listen to your body. Many times I recommend a probiotic and somebody says, look, that made me bloat. And I say, okay, well, that one was really heavy in lactobacillus. Now we know that your balance is off. Let's try this one, which has a little bit more balance in bifido. So you can balance that out. So it's not usually long-standing, those side effects. They're usually able to be worked with. They're very minimal, to be honest, when someone's taking a really good quality probiotic. Okay, so what is that? Very common question. First of all, these are live organisms, okay? And sometimes they're usually freeze-dried, so they're manufactured in freeze-dried. Now, a good supplement company will know when they made them, when they put them in the capsule, and when they will expire. Okay, so for example, I had a patient a few months ago write me and say, hey, I heard of this probiotic, and what do you think of it? Well, I had never heard of it. It was a brand new one. And it had all these claims on its website saying that it did this, that, and this. So I called the company and I said, hey, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I want to learn more about this probiotic. Can you tell me its source? How did they make it? Was it a live source? Was it, from the human gut? Was it an animal source? Was it a food-based source? And when was it manufactured and how long does it last? How do you maintain stability? And the person said, I have no idea. Yeah. Not cool. If you manufacture probiotics, you should know the answers to those questions. So if you were to call a company, if you were wondering, is my probiotic any good? They should be able to provide you with a wealth of information about why their probiotic is good. If they can't provide that, then they don't know. If they don't know, I don't trust it personally. I know that when I call the supplement companies that I work with, they tell me so much more than I even ask. One that I work with that I love to use, and unfortunately, because of my board rules, I can't tell you the brand at this point. I don't know. Anyway, it frustrates me, but beyond that. But anyway, they actually tell you when it was manufactured. On the label, it says when it will expire and the amount on the label. So if it says 20 billion of X amount of organisms, there's a note that says that is the amount at expiration. Meaning that if it's a 6 months expiration, they have tested it at the end of the expiration period and say that there was always a minimum of 20 billion in there at expiration. Now, in the beginning, it may be closer to 100 million. So you also have to look at, did the supplement company label the amount of probiotics in it at the time of manufacture or the amount of probiotics in it when it expires? Right? I get that asked all the time. Can I take my probiotic? It expired. If I know for a fact that at expiration it's going to have 20 billion, my answer will be yes. If I don't know that, my answer is, well, maybe it may not work, right? Very, very important. And I believe that makes a difference between a really reputable probiotic company worth spending the money for versus okay? There is a brand that cites that it is the #1 probiotic sold in America, and I don't doubt it. It probably is. But when you look at the label, you will see that it usually just has one strain of lactobacillus. There is another variation they have that has a strain of bifido, so I give them credit for that. However, that comes to 2 billion. So it's 1 to 2 billion in capsule. Actually, I might be wrong. It might be 10. I'm sorry. It's 10 billion. I apologize. to the company. It's 10 billion on the label. Does not say if that's at the time of manufacture or the time of expiration. I would like to think that's at the time of manufacture, because if it was at the time of expiration, you think they would put that on the label, because that's a very important thing to say. Hey, this will be guaranteed up until this time. We guarantee it. If they can't guarantee that, it probably was at manufacture, right? On top of that, the inactive ingredients on any supplement, guys, any supplement, probiotics, multivitamins, B vitamins, whatever it is, always look at the inactive ingredients. If it is filled with stuff like this one is, so let me read them: mannitol, maltodextrin, carnauba wax, artificial colors, red, blue, #2, whatever. That's not what we want. Soybean oil, why do we need to put soybean oil? That's commonly in a lot of vitamin D's out there. It's vitamin D plus soybean oil. There's no need to add soybean oil. Vitamin D is an oil in itself. We don't need it, right? So look at inactive ingredients. It should be something as simple as a capsule, perhaps a small binder, depending on what the supplement is. Sometimes there's a small binder in there. There should never be added colors, flavors, things like that ever in a supplement. There's really no need. And probiotics are notorious for this, especially the ones that you might get at your local pharmacy. You have to read the back of the label, guys. Gotta read it, okay? So those are some very important things. Some of the strains to look for. Now, I mentioned earlier that the one I use uses multiple different lactobacillus strains, and it does. And it lists those on the back. Which ones does it have? Now, these are all names that I'm sure I would entertain you with trying to say them all. It's always fun for me to try to say interesting Latin-based names, but I'm going to spare you today. But it has 2 different guaranteed strains of lactobacillus. No, actually, I'm sorry, 4 guaranteed strains of lactobacillus, 2 guaranteed strains of bifido, and the addition of Saccharomyces boulardii, okay? Saccharomyces boulardii is actually a yeast, but Saccharomyces boulardii is a great addition to a probiotic because it helps increase the integrity of the gut. So if you're someone that has food allergies, leaky gut type symptoms, all those skin conditions that we talked about earlier, eczema, psoriasis, Saccharomyces boulardii is a very nice addition. It's also been well studied in the treatment of Clostridium difficile, which is the bacteria that people can get when they're on regular antibiotics. What happens is you kill off all the good flora, and this Clostridium grows, and then you have chronic gut issues. It's a big issue, and there's not a lot of solutions in the traditional medical community for that particular bug. It's very hard to treat. It's hard to treat for anyone. I've had a few patients with it, and man, it's a bugger. But Saccharomyces boulardii always helps, okay, because it helps increase the integrity of the gut. I personally take that every day. So looking at the different areas, and Saccharomyces has a great impact on the immune system. It increases IgA, which is it's called an immunoglobulin A. And I think I told you I love the name globulin. This is an immunoglobulin, meaning that it is an immune glob that helps boost your immune system, particularly in your mucous membranes. So inside the nose, inside the mouth, inside the digestion, those types of things. And Saccharomyces boulardii has a great positive impact on that, which is why it has so much research in immune health. So I always look for that one in there. It's not in every supplement. Okay, guys, that's not an easy one to find. Okay, because most of the ones that are shelf stable at your pharmacy are usually a straight lactobacillus. It is quite a process to create a probiotic. I have talked to numerous supplement companies about this, about their methods, about their trial and errors, how they test it, and I tell you, it is very, very detailed. That's why I say if you call a company and they don't know anything about it, that worries me, because in order to create a shelf stable, high quality probiotic, you have to know everything. So usually you're pretty safe if you have a local naturopath, most likely a functional medicine doctor in your area. Typically they know which supplements are great. So when you look at that when you look like, where do I find one locally? That's always a good idea. Definitely looking at supplement stores as opposed to the pharmacy tend to have higher quality. There are a lot of food-based ones, which are great. They're not as high of a number of probiotics, but if you have general wellness and you're just needing something that's somewhat stable and easy to take, those are good ones to take. They're usually well tolerated. So very important, I'm just going to review, very important to realize that these are live organisms. You need to know when they were manufactured, when they expire, and if the amount on the label was at time of manufacture or time of expiration, okay? Number 2, make sure there's multiple strains in there, not just one, okay? And if you have trouble with one that has a certain dominance of strain, you might want to try a different one that has a different dominance of strain, okay? Number 3, look for inactive ingredients on the label. Okay, don't be eating a bunch of carnauba wax and red dye number whatever. So if you have any questions, call the company, see what they say. Okay, so those are some of my main tips for it. Oh, and anywhere between 10 and 50 billion. Also depends on, was that at time of manufacture or time of expiration. If it's 20 at time of expiration, you'll be fine. Even if it's 10 at time of expiration, you'll be fine. If it's 20 at the manufacturer, you're probably gonna have to go higher. You probably have to do like 100 in order to guarantee that you could get 20, and you may not even guarantee that, okay? So lots of things to consider with probiotics, tons of things to consider, but the health benefits, can't really argue those, folks. I have a couple articles on probiotics actually on my website right now. I have one that kind of talks about what we talked about today, general benefits, how to pick a probiotic, and then I have top 10 questions about probiotics, which are just general, what you need to know. I am here to answer questions. You can write more questions. I see a ton of them. I'm going to come back and answer them all. I encourage you to take a look at these, consider taking a probiotic. Please share this. If this helps you and you feel like your friends would benefit from this, share it with them. Why not? What else are we going to do right now? We're all sitting here in quarantine. I have tons of articles on my website. My website is drpingel.com. So feel free to check that out. They're all free articles. It doesn't cost you anything. Just You want to read about them, you want different topics. I do have a couple topics in mind for my last 2 lives this week, but if you have any more suggestions, I would love to hear from you. Tell me what you want to hear about, okay? Talk to me. I'm here for you. So anyway, go on out, look for your probiotics, look for a high quality source, and please be well. There's a lot of new news stories. Last night I was reading a bunch of news ones about, how we get back to society, looking at how we're gonna all come through the situation that we're in. So I just encourage you to have faith in it, trust it. We're gonna be all right. Keep those good bacteria in there. Keep your stress low, folks. Stress low. That helps keep your immune system high. Make sure you're eating good food. Right? Get those plants in there, get those nutrients in there, get that vitamin C in there, get those things in your body so that your body is primed to go, so that when we do get back out in society, we have a little bit more protection than we did a month or 2 months ago. Okay, guys? Anyway, that's it for Wednesday. Much love from the Pingels. Take care now. Bye-bye.